At my family's annual business meeting, my father slammed a folder on the table and said, "You're all too weak to run this empire." My brother laughed, "And you think you still can?" My father smirked, "That's why I'm bringing back the one person who can." The doors opened, and in walked the one family member we had all been taught to fear. My hands trembled as I realized. He had been planning this for years. I've been a long-time lurker here, but recent events in my family have compelled me to share a story that still feels surreal. About a month ago, during our family's annual business meeting, the foundation of our lives was shaken. Our family owns a chain of high-end hotels across the U.S., with our flagship property in New York City. My father, Richard, has been the patriarch and CEO for decades. My siblings, Michael and Sarah, and I have been involved in various capacities, but none of us ever held the reins. The annual meeting is a formal affair held in the grand conference room of our NYC hotel. This year was no different. The room was filled with board members, key stakeholders, and our immediate family. As we settled in, my father entered, carrying a thick folder. He looked more serious than usual. Without a word, he walked to the head of the table and slammed the folder down. "You're all too weak to run this empire," he declared, his eyes scanning the room. The room fell silent. Michael, ever the skeptic, leaned back in his chair and chuckled. "And you think you still can?" Michael retorted. My father smirked, a look I knew all too well. "That's why I'm bringing back the one person who can." Before anyone could react, the double doors at the end of the room swung open. In walked Jonathan. My heart nearly stopped. Jonathan was our cousin, but he had always been more than that. He was the prodigal son, the black sheep, the one we had all been taught to fear. Years ago, Jonathan had been deeply involved in the family business. He was brilliant but ruthless. His methods were often questionable, bordering on unethical. After a particularly scandalous deal that nearly brought the company to its knees, my father had no choice but to exile him from the business and the family. We hadn't seen or heard from him since. Now, here he was, striding into the room with the same confidence and charisma that had once made him both revered and feared. He was impeccably dressed, his suit tailored to perfection. His piercing blue eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on each of us before settling on my father. "Hello, family," Jonathan greeted, his voice smooth as silk. My hands trembled under the table. I glanced at Sarah, who looked as pale as a ghost. Michael's smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of disbelief. "You can't be serious," Michael said, turning to our father. "I've never been more serious," our father replied. Jonathan has spent the last decade building his own empire. He knows how to lead, how to make tough decisions, something you all seem to lack. I felt a surge of anger. We've been here, dedicating our lives to this company. And now you bring him back? After everything he did? Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Everything I did was for the good of the company. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Sarah found her voice. You nearly destroyed us. But I didn't, Jonathan countered. And I won't now. I'm here to help. Our father nodded. Jonathan will be taking over as CEO, effective immediately. I expect you all to support him. The room erupted into chaos. Board members whispered among themselves. Michael stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. This is a mistake, Michael said. The decision is final, our father stated, leaving no room for argument. Jonathan smiled, a predator who had just secured his prey. I look forward to working with all of you. As the meeting adjourned, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Jonathan's return wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. My father had been planning this for years. And now, we were all pawns in their game. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is certain, the dynamics of our family and our business have changed forever. Has anyone else experienced something similar in their family business? How did you navigate the complexities of such a power shift? The room emptied slowly after that announcement, like people didn't want to be the first to move, afraid their steps would somehow make it real. I stayed behind. So did Sarah and Michael. Our father stood tall like a statue at the head of the table. Jonathan walked to the window, hands in his pockets, looking out over the New York skyline like he already owned it. Maybe he did now. Nobody spoke for what felt like forever. Then Michael snapped. "This is a joke, right?" he shouted. "You're replacing your own children with him?" Our father didn't flinch. "He's the only one who understands what it takes. You two have gotten comfortable." Soft. Soft. That word hit like a slap. Michael's jaw clenched. Sarah crossed her arms and sat down, almost in slow motion, like her knees had given out. "I gave up my life for this company," she said. "No family, no kids, no peace." "For what?" Jonathan turned and smiled at her. "You'll still have a role, Sarah. You all will. Just, not the roles you had before." I wanted to scream. I really did. But instead, I just asked, "How long have you two been talking?" My father finally looked at me. 4 years. 4 years. My hands curled into fists under the table. They'd been planning this for 4 years, behind our backs, while we ran meetings, solved crisis after crisis, did all the dirty work. We thought we were earning trust. Turns out we were just warming the seat for Jonathan. Sarah was shaking her head. "This isn't business. This is betrayal." Jonathan chuckled. "You're being dramatic. You're being smug," Michael shot back. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Jonathan didn't waste time. On day 1 as CEO, he fired the company's CFO and replaced her with a guy none of us knew, a flashy Wall Street name with a track record of gutting companies and flipping them for profit. I knew what was coming. He was here to cut costs, clean house, and probably sell us off to the highest bidder. He also started calling all the shots without us. Meetings were shorter. Colder. He made decisions in closed rooms, announced them without warning, and expected everyone to follow. My title? Special Advisor. Translation: shut up and watch. Sarah started skipping meetings altogether. Michael was on edge all the time, snapping at assistants, almost fighting with security when they tried to stop him from entering Jonathan's office unannounced. And me? I played it cool. I said little. I watched everything. I kept notes. One night, around 2 a.m., I got a message from one of our IT guys. "Just a short one, you might want to see this." He'd attached a file. Encrypted. I decrypted it and almost dropped my laptop. It was an internal audit report from 2 years ago, one I didn't even know existed. The numbers were off. Way off. Millions moved around in strange places. Properties undervalued. Fake shell companies. And at the center of it? Jonathan. It was before his return, yes. But these shell companies? They were tied to a hedge fund that he had started. A fund that bought stakes in our hotels through layers of corporate masks. He was bleeding us dry before he ever walked back through those doors. And my father? His name was on the approval forms. That's when I realized this wasn't just about business. It wasn't just about power. They were hiding something. Something big. So I started digging. What I found made me sick. A quiet property deal from 3 years ago in Miami. A warehouse registered to one of the shell companies. No guests. No staff. Just monthly security payments. Then I saw who had signed off on the lease, our father. The next morning, I flew to Miami. Alone. What I found there changed everything. The building was plain, ugly, surrounded by a chain-link fence. I bribed the guard $200 to let me peek inside. There were boxes. Hundreds of them. All marked with barcodes, all labeled in red, "Archive Private." Photos. Files. Videos. Not of our business, but of people. Politicians. Celebrities. Some of them staying at our hotels. Some of them doing things they probably didn't want anyone knowing about. I grabbed one file. Just one. Took it back with me. It was real. Our hotel empire? It wasn't just luxury rooms and rooftop pools. It was blackmail. We'd been running a surveillance racket. And somehow, Jonathan and my father were back in it together. I don't know what to do next. Sarah and Michael still don't know. Not the whole truth, anyway. But I can't sit still anymore. This goes deeper than a family business. This is corruption. Power. Control. And if I push too hard, I might disappear. But if I stay silent? They win. I need to figure out my next move. Fast. The flight back from Miami was quiet. My mind wasn't. I kept the file hidden in a manila envelope under my jacket the whole way. Every time I thought about what was in it, my stomach turned. This wasn't just shady business. This was criminal. When I landed in NYC, I didn't go home. I went to Sarah's apartment. She opened the door looking half asleep and annoyed until she saw my face. I found something, I said. She stepped aside without a word. I placed the folder on her kitchen table. She read through it slowly. I watched her expression change from confusion to horror. "You're telling me we've been running this?" she whispered. "Dad and Jonathan, they've been blackmailing people?" "Yeah. And some of those people are dangerous. Politicians. CEOs. Judges." We sat there in silence. Sarah finally said, "Michael needs to see this." I hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Yes. He's impulsive, but he's still our brother." I nodded. We called him, met at his place the next morning. He flipped out. Punched the wall. Called Dad a snake in a suit. And then, out of nowhere, Michael said, "You think Mom knew?" The question hit hard. Our mom died 7 years ago. Heart attack. At least, that's what we were told. But now I wondered, what if it wasn't that simple? Sarah and I looked at each other. Something clicked. We dug through old emails, family messages, Mom's archived photos. There were weird gaps. Months where she seemed distant. One email in particular stood out. Sent from her to Dad 6 months before she died, "You need to shut this down, Richard. I won't let our kids grow up in this." That was the subject line. The email itself was empty. Blank. Almost like she'd written it and then deleted it. Or someone else had. I checked the metadata. It had been modified. 2 hours after it was sent. Dad. I couldn't say it out loud yet, but I think Sarah knew what I was thinking. Michael said it for us. "You think he killed her?" No one answered. We couldn't breathe for a while after that. The next few days, we acted normal. Went to meetings. Smiled in the halls. But under the surface, we were digging. Watching. Planning. Then came another shock. A letter arrived at Sarah's apartment. No return address. Inside was a flash drive and a single sentence: "Don't trust Jonathan. He's not your cousin." We played the flash drive on her laptop. Surveillance footage. Old. Grainy. It showed Jonathan at a hospital, talking to a nurse. There was a crying woman in a wheelchair behind him. A baby. The timestamp read January 1988. Jonathan would have been 4 years old at that time. We ran facial recognition on the baby's mother from a copy of the file. The system flagged her under another name, Vanessa Greeley. No relation to our family at all. We searched birth records. Jonathan's real name? Peter Greeley. Adopted. No records of any formal adoption by our family. Just, suddenly appearing around the age of 6, and everyone told to call him Jonathan. My stomach dropped. He was placed in our family. Michael asked the obvious question. By who? And why? Suddenly, this felt less like family betrayal and more like a long game, something with layers, players, and agendas we hadn't even considered. Dad hadn't just picked Jonathan because he was ruthless. He picked him because he had to. Because someone was pulling strings, maybe from way back. And then, out of nowhere, I got a call. Blocked number. Male voice. Calm. If you want to stay alive, stop looking. Click. I played the call back 3 times. The voice sounded too controlled. Like it had been practiced. Not angry. Just direct. Like a warning, not a threat. But that was worse. Who else knew what we were doing? Sarah installed security cameras. Michael started carrying a weapon. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And then Dad called a family dinner. Said it was time for all of us to talk face to face. Just him, us 3, and Jonathan. Something about it felt final. We agreed to go. But we weren't going in blind. Sarah made copies of the blackmail files. I wired a dead man's switch to an encrypted cloud server. If something happened to any of us, the files would be emailed to the media. I kept a flash drive in my jacket. Michael had a mic in his shoe. Sarah wore a wire. If Dad wanted to end this, he'd have to play our game now. The dinner was set for Saturday. Private room at our flagship hotel. Just us. No assistants. No distractions. Jonathan greeted us with a smile like we were old friends catching up. Dad stood behind his chair like a king about to deliver judgment. He raised his glass. To family, he said. We didn't raise ours. He didn't seem surprised. He sat. And said one sentence that chilled me to the bone, I know what you found. We sat in silence after my father said it. I know what you found. No one spoke. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, completely at ease, like he was watching a movie he'd already seen. My heart pounded in my chest. Sarah was frozen. Michael's jaw twitched. Dad looked each of us in the eye. You think you're the first to dig? You think you're the only ones who've had doubts? He let out a dry laugh. Your mother found out. That's why she's gone. Sarah flinched so hard her glass tipped and shattered. Michael stood up. You killed her. No, Dad said flatly. But I didn't stop the people who did. Sarah gasped. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. She was going to go public, Dad continued. With the blackmail, the surveillance, all of it. She told me she wanted out. That she didn't care about the money anymore. That she'd take you 3 and disappear. He looked down at his hands. For a moment, he looked tired. Old. But you can't just walk away from something like this. You don't get to say no. You don't get to threaten the wrong people. Jonathan, Peter, whoever the hell he really was, finally spoke. Your mother's mistake was thinking she had leverage. She didn't. She was emotional. Messy. Michael lunged across the table. He tackled Jonathan to the floor, fists flying. Jonathan barely got a hand up before Michael landed 2 solid punches to his face. You don't talk about her. Michael roared. Security burst in. Dad didn't move. Sarah screamed at them to stop. But they pulled Michael off, dragged him out of the room, kicking and shouting. His voice echoed down the hallway. I'll kill you both. Then it was just me, Sarah, Dad, and Jonathan. Dad sighed. This empire wasn't built on ethics. It was built on control. On silence. You want to burn it down? Go ahead. But you won't survive it. I stood up. We're not like you. You will be, he said, like it was a curse, not a choice. Sarah looked at him like he was a stranger. How long has any of this been real? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We left. Just walked out. No plan. No words. Michael was waiting outside, pacing, his knuckles bruised and bleeding. We told him everything. We went home. Packed bags. And disappeared for a while. Michael left first. Said he couldn't stay in New York. Moved to Oregon. Bought a cabin. No phone for a month. Sarah and I stuck around just long enough to finish what we started. We sent copies of the files to every major news outlet anonymously. We knew we were risking everything, jail, lawsuits, worse, but we had to do it. It was on the front page 2 days later. Billion-dollar hotel empire accused of massive surveillance and blackmail operation. Stock crashed. Investigations opened. Politicians scrambled to distance themselves. Dad resigned publicly, said it was due to health issues. Jonathan vanished. No trace. No digital footprint. It was like he'd never existed. Then came the interviews. The subpoenas. The fallout. And the silence. We waited for someone to come after us. But no one did. Not yet. It's been 6 months. Sarah went back to teaching. She's quieter now, but stronger. She says the kids give her hope. Michael writes me letters sometimes. Long ones. He says he forgives me for not stopping it sooner. Me? I still don't sleep well. I still look over my shoulder. I think about Mom a lot. What she knew. What she tried to protect us from. What it cost her. I don't know if we did the right thing. But I know we couldn't stay quiet. That family dinner broke us, but maybe it also saved us. In the worst way. People say blood is thicker than water. But secrets? They're thicker than both. And sometimes, the only way to heal is to let it all burn.